Call the regular meeting of May 14, 2013, the Municipal Planning Commission to order. Item number 1 on the agenda is opening with prayer and the pledge. Mr. Vaughan, can you help us?
Please bow. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that you have created for us. Father, we thank you for your many blessings. Father, we thank you for the beautiful sunshine that you've given us. Father, we ask that you would guide these men and women as they undertake the city's business, Father, that their interest, their decision would be in the best interest of the citizens. Father, we ask these things in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If it's not raining, we play ball.
Item number 2 is the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add an item, and I guess it would be under new business. The grading plan and erosion control plan entry for the Walmart spoils site for the additional 14 acres.
Can we call that phase 2 for our meeting, Don? That'd be okay? All right, we're going to add that as a addition to 8.6.
8.6.
Everybody okay with that? We're going to vote. Is there any other additions or deletions from the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we have the addition of 8.6. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that will be added. Item number 3 is the citizens' comments. We have one citizen's comment from Mr. Rick Meyer.
I'd like to thank the Commission for listening to me tonight. The concern that I have is the 14 acres that you just brought up about the spoils of Walmart being placed over there. It's come to my attention that spoils can be a lot of things, and the major concern about Bowie Park is that it be preserved as much as possible. In the EPA and other findings from the state, they have indicated that the 2 major contributors to pollution in a watershed area are roads and construction, both of which fall under this category. I would hope that the Commission will look deep into this as to what kind of material will be taken from the Walmart excavation site and placed in that 14 acres or parts thereof, and the possible adverse effect it might have on the watershed into Bowie. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 4 is the approval of the minutes from the April 9th regular meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5 are recommendations.
The Board of Commissioners at their last meeting have asked the city attorney to draw up the ordinances for these annexations. They will have first reading on the Thursday night agenda.
And then item 6.1 are the bonds for Harlem Reserve subdivision.
We've been contacted by the developer. He's working on the having that reissued. We'll ask that y'all follow the normal procedure and authorize the calling if it's not in place by the expiration date.
Make a motion for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 7.1 is under old business, is an amendment to an approved subdivision plat for the row at Fernvale, map 42, parcel 86, 1.69 acres, 4 lots, zone RS 50, Benchmark Properties LLC owner. Is there someone from the property owners here? Yes. This time, I'd like to read the engineer's comments. Put into the record as well.
It is recommended that a water and sewer certification block still be required for plats that identify existing public utility lines, even if there are no new public utility lines being proposed. By requiring a WADC signature on the plat, it allows WADC the ability to confirm the existence of any existing line shown on a plat prior to it being recorded. The second engineering comment is, while a portion of Lot 4, approximately 5,000 square feet, does contain slopes ranging from 13 to 20%, the majority of the lot exceeds a slope of 20%. As such, Lot 4 should be labeled on the plat as a critical lot or an unbuildable lot. If designated a critical lot, a note should be added to the plat indicating why the lot is labeled as critical, i.e. slope exceeds 20%. Furthermore, the applicant may delineate a building envelope that encompasses the area of the lot that has a slope of less than 20% and state that a site plan will be required to be submitted at a time of application for a building permit. A site plan shall show the exact boundaries of the proposed building in relation to the delineated building envelope, and it will be reviewed by city staff.
Okay. We have a motion for item 7.1.
Move to approve for discussion.
Second.
Okay. Don, what we're talking about is appears that the building envelope is marked on our prints has a slope of 13.3%, 13%.
As shown on the plan, yes, sir.
That meets our criteria to be able to have a buildable lot at that point if the building stays within that envelope.
Well, the new subdivision regulations state that any portion of a lot that has 20% or greater slopes has to be considered a critical lot. So just by the subdivision regulations, it's going to have to be considered a critical lot. Now, the planning commission can, within their purview, approve it as a critical lot. It's not considered an unbuildable lot, he can still build on it. But when he brings in an application for a building permit, he's going to have to include a site plan to show the area exactly where he's going to build the house on the property. So we can make sure that it's within that 13% area and not somewhere else on the property.
Do you understand what we're asking?
I do.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I might add, in our March 12th meeting, we looked at this, and there were 5 planning commissioners that voted for a critical lot and 3 voted against it. So why are we bringing this up again? For Lot 4.
The plat
I was asking, what
that
are we
was,
amending?
the plat that was brought to me to record, the note that was placed on the on the plat for Lot 4 said that the Lot 4 was unbuildable until suitable fill was brought in and inspected by the city engineer. I couldn't record that plat because of one thing, the city engineer is not going to approve fill on a personal lot. He would have to hire his own engineer to come in and do the engineered soil and compact it and give us engineer's report that's saying that this is a buildable lot and that his engineer would stamp his plan and approve it, would submit it to our engineer, then our engineer would review it and verify that it was accurate. So I couldn't record the plat because it stated that our engineer would be doing that inspection, which our engineer wouldn't be doing that. And so that brought up the question about the lot being unbuildable. And I told Mr. Dowdy that he, from my understanding from the planning commission, was that if he could prove that it was a buildable lot, then he was to come back to you all and say, this is a buildable lot because of this.
What, I just read in the minutes, and what I remember, we designated lot 4 as unbuildable, and now we are moving that to a critical lot because of the slope and the other areas are on lot 4.
Right.
That's why we have to amend it. And the city engineers issue. So is everybody comfortable? So can I get a vote? All in favor?
No motion.
Yeah, we have a first and a second.
Yeah, we have a first and a second.
To
Approve.
approve.
As a critical lot.
I don't think that was that the
What's the
motion?
motion again, please?
It was, okay.
Approve as a critical lot, that's,
I think the motion that you made was just to approve it.
Right.
I don't think you
To be heard.
stated.
It wasn't a change in there. To change it from not buildable to critical. I'd like to make the motion that we move to change it from not buildable to critical.
Okay.
And that's what I
And
second.
that's what you said. She seconded. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Item 8.1, new business, the final site plan for Tiger Imports to build a 3,500 square foot building located at 7107 Juniper Road, map 18, parcel 47.16, 1.47 acres, IG land, Tiger Imports LLC.
Move to approve.
Second.
Do we have a responsibility?
There are 3 notes from the engineer. The first is retaining wall details will need to be submitted and reviewed when the owner applies for a building permit. The second comment from our city engineer is the stormwater junction box and head wall should be precast concrete structures suitable sized for accommodating the proposed 15-inch storm pipe. And the third comment was the design storm for stormwater detention on industrial sites is the 100-year storm event. Please revise the stormwater calculations that are shown on the plan accordingly. If the increase in runoff is greater than 1 CFS, then detention may be required on the site. That's all the engineer's comments.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for the approval of the final plat,
As long as it's,
final site plan.
I'd like to amend that motion to include any and all recommendations from the city engineer.
Second.
You have a second? Okay. Any discussions or questions? And I'd like to get a vote on the amendment as Commissioner Sutton has stated, incorporating the city engineer's notes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and then the original motion to approve the final site plan with the amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. The final site plan has been approved. Item 8.2 is the design review for the Tiger Imports addition located at 7107 Juniper Road, map 18, parcel 47.16, 1.47 acres, IG zoning, Tiger Imports LLC owner.
No engineering comments.
I need a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a question about the split face block being approved in our design criteria.
It's an approved building material for industrial buildings. And it's in our design review manual as such. And it can be the major building material of the building.
So there's not 80% required on the brick?
So we don't
Not
have
in the-
design
not in the-
criteria in this industrial as we've talked about for others.
There's design standards, but they're not
The same.
the same as commercial.
Commercial. Okay.
And this is also because of the restricted covenants for that subdivision as well, that allows for different types of materials.
Gotcha. Thank you for that clarification.
Anything else? Anything further on the design? Okay, seeing such, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 8.3 is set bond for the Tiger Imports located at 7107 Juniper Road, map 18, parcel 47.16, 1.47 acres, IG zoning, Tiger Imports LLC owner. Can I have the recommendation from the engineer?
The site bond for the reference project is intended to include stabilization of the subject site should the owner-developer fail to complete the construction of the project. Please note that the bond amount is not intended to cover the full cost of completing the development of the site as shown on the approved plans. The site stabilization can include different actions depending on the stage of construction. In general, it includes any required grading, excavation work that would be needed in order to establish adequate drainage of the site, stormwater conveyance structures depending on the stage of construction, temporary erosion control measures, and establishing permanent vegetative cover. It is recommended that the bond amount for this site be set at $3,500.
Got a motion for approval, we got a second. Any discussion? What size of the, we're looking at 3,500 square feet disturbed area for the building itself, and then probably another 25 feet on each side of the building.
The plan indicates that it's almost a tenth of an acre of disturbance. So we're
Okay.
talking about a very small area.
So you believe $3,500 will cover any kind of erosion control? And
What's the timeline of getting his bond back?
You just gotta have it posted before pre-construction meeting.
Okay.
Generally bond run for a year,
Yeah, we'll be done
we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, I'd like to get a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck with your project.
Just out of curiosity, how many more employees is that going to bring? Or is
Yeah,
it?
well,
He's the
it's
contractor.
mainly just warehouse stores because it's grown
Okay.
so much that, another year or so.
It's a good problem. Okay.
Item 8.4 is the conceptual site plan for the L&L equipment located at 1540 Highway 96 North, map 18, parcel 1.00, 14.57 acres, Cooper L. Inman owner. Representative from the property owner here?
Yes, my name's Adam Sager. I'm the civil engineer on the project.
Great, thank you. We have some engineers' comments from city engineer.
3 comments. The first, the existing contours shown on the plan do not reflect an existing pond as indicated on the north end of the site. Upon submitting final site plan, the existing contour should accurately reflect what is currently present at the site. The second note is, please note that the city's stormwater detention requirements for commercial and industrial sites call for underground detention on site zone commercial or industrial. The third comment, please note that the city's parking requirements call for all parking areas and access drives to be surfaced with asphalt or concrete or other hard surfaced dustless material. Also, all parking areas and access drives are to have concrete curbing around their perimeter.
Okay, I need a motion.
Make a motion for approval with the engineering report.
Second.
Okay, I'd like to open up for discussion. On the plans, we have force main going down the front on Highway 96. Had the opportunity to talk with WADC and talk about putting that or tying on to the force main sewer?
Yeah, we spoke with them at first. Off the top of their head, they thought it might be a lot of pressure, but they went out there and ran some tests, and they've informed us that we would be able to access that sewer force main at the location of the frontage of the property.
Okay.
What type of business is this?
This is a heavy equipment retail sales. They do auctions and selling dozers, trucks, things like that.
Much like the one that's over on 96 now.
The commercial design specifications for retail call for internal landscape islands in the parking area for the equipment area that's going to be sold. It also, like the engineer stated, calls for either concrete or an asphalt. Now, I understand with the type of equipment that they're looking at and what they deal with, that may not be practical because it's just, that type of weight of equipment on that surface, it's going to tear it up pretty easily, I believe. So I think what we need to be looking at is if we're going to do this, to look at the commercial design specs and what we need in terms of the internal landscape islands, but then probably look at a variance on the surface of the area that they want to put the equipment in because of the nature of the equipment. I mean, I have always been one to say that the specifications need to be met if you're looking at that, but in this particular case, I think it's important to know that some of this equipment's pretty heavy, and it's just going to be a constant battle dealing with trying to get this stuff concreted all the time.
No, we have to apply for the variance. We have to apply for the variance.
But if you approve the plan as it's submitted, then you're granting the variance based on the approval of the plan.
But we'd have to take out the engineer's suggestion.
Yes, sir, if you by the motion that's on the floor, yes, you'd have to take out that.
And that's what I'm saying, we have to apply this right here, then come back and give them a variance on the,
If you vote it like it is right now,
You gotta
then
bring it
he'll
back.
have to come back and ask for a variance on that.
that's what I was, make sure we're clear on.
Is,
Chairman.
is this main loop drive, is that drawn or the concept to be asphalt? And then just gravel in the middle where you're gonna be, do you know?
Right now, we do not propose to put asphalt down, much like for the reasons that you stated. If you put asphalt down on concrete, anything, something like this with those heavy loads, you'd be ripping it up and putting it back down for
Well, I understand you probably bring the equipment in on a trailer and then you'd unload it into this gravel parking area where
That's
it would be
correct.
sitting. So that's why I was just curious if
The
at least
drive-
the main loop would be. some
The
type
main loop would be gravel as shown. We
Okay.
showed a main loop just to kind of show the flow of the
Okay.
traffic, and the
Alright.
inside would be where it's all parked. It's very similar to what's out there today.
So what about the parking area in front of the office? Is that gravel as well?
We propose that to be gravel at this time. It's my understanding, I was not present at the meeting, but it's my understanding that the owner had a meeting, and it's his understanding that he was be allowed to do gravel along the front for all the parking.
I don't think that's,
No, I mean, I would think the parking area and down to the loop would have to be asphalt.
What
Just
does
for
it say as
aesthetics
far
and
as
dust
the
on the roads.
regulations in parking in industrial zone?
Well, this is commercial general zone. The requirements per the zoning ordinance in Article 9 of the zoning ordinance requires that all parking areas of 5 spaces or more have to be paved with a hard surface, either asphalt or concrete or any dustless hard surface. It has to be curved and it has to be striped. And requires handicap accessible parking depending on how many spaces is required for that type of business. I haven't sat down to calculate exactly how many parking spaces are required, but they're not going to be required to have but one handicapped parking accessible space, which has to be van accessible, so you have a handicap space, and then you have an 8-foot hashed off area to one side for van accessibility. But they wouldn't exceed the number that would require more than one handicap accessible parking area. So those areas have to be delineated by striping and signage and things of that nature. It'd be hard to put stripes on a gravel parking lot and they stay there. So the parking area in the front would have to be an asphalt or some type of hard surface that you could actually put stripes on and curb. The requirements for the rest of it would be the same, but because of the nature of the business, you wouldn't want to require that because of the asphalt being torn up with tracks on the bulldozers and things of that nature. So you would give a variance under those circumstances, but the design standards require that internal parking areas have landscaped islands as well, and that's to just break up a sea of asphalt. So the planning commission could require that they still put their interior landscaping islands in there, even though they're not paving and they're just keeping it gravel, to break up just the total gravel area. So they have to create landscaped islands with trees and shrubs and things of that nature. That's under y'all's purview too, to approve it that way if you decide to approve it that way.
Talking on landscape, not to jump around too much, but could it be a requirement on this 30-foot front yard setback? Is there a landscape requirement for the setback in the median, like they're kind of creating a median?
Yeah, there's
I know this is conceptual, and you probably didn't put little trees on there, but.
The buffer area for the front of the property, it's from the existing right-of-way, 20 foot into the property is designated as a landscape buffered area.
Okay.
And then you'd get into your parking area.
Okay.
That's part of the design standards as well.
Do you have something you want to say?
Yes. It is our request that we would be able to do gravel throughout where we're going to park the vehicles in the rear, like we spoke about. If the front area where the parking goes needs to be asphalt for the vehicular parking, we understand that. We would also request that the entrance drives where the heavy machinery would be coming in and out with the low boys, the excavators, things like that, that we would not have to put curb up in those main drives coming in, just because of the fact that it would get torn up very easily. And well, that's it. You have to probably repair it a lot.
We could go ahead and give them the opportunity to, in the final, to show how the asphalt parking lot in front of the office will look and how they're going to come in off of Highway 96 with the heavy equipment and have a clean buffer or a clean area of the gravel. Because he's right, if you go in off Highway 96 with that heavy equipment, you've got the same issue as you would if you had it behind the office. He's got to have a way to get his equipment in behind the parking area, and I think that incorporates some the gravel coming off Highway 96. Unless we go with concrete.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend concrete because asphalt is what, only 2,500 PSI? Or what
There's
is-
different grades.
I know there's, but just like Downs Boulevard in Franklin where they know, I mean, that's industrial, they have gravel, giant, rock quarries and gravel trucks, and they have a lot of concrete where the trucks will be stopping and making turns in and out. So I think we can require hard surface, but obviously asphalt probably wouldn't be the smartest unless there's another
Recommendations
product.
of the hard surface dustless material.
So we can keep in the engineer's report or the engineer's comments of the hard surface dustless material, and that would cover the concrete going into the drive area and the asphalt in the parking area.
Can I ask why the handicap part was not included in your section 3 under parking?
Handicap with what regard?
You just said that after 5 spaces, a handicap, something you just said handicap was a necessity.
No, any parking lot is required to have handicap
At least
accessibility.
one.
Shows.
It's just not in the verbiage of number 3. I was curious, did we need to add that? Is that understood? Is it just because it's conceptual, it doesn't have to be discussed?
He's got 2 handicap stalls shown on the
That's why
site
you
plan.
didn't
That's
add
why I
it.
didn't add it,
I'm so
correct.
sorry.
What is it, Don? Is it 1 per 20 spots or one?
Yeah, something like that.
There's a weighted.
1 per 19.
It goes up to 100 spaces. It's 1 per, I think, 25, and then after
25.
100, it's 1 per 50.
Thank you.
So within this hard surface that we're talking about, how far would that have to go back from 96 into the area that we are going to say, or talking about saying that gravel's going to be okay? Is it going to, what type of distance are we looking at there?
I mean, I would say for me, like at least even to where the sidewalk is proposed, or some type of maybe to the building or beyond the building, something like that. And then,
Yeah, I'd say like 100, 150 foot
Yeah.
back, because you gotta figure, your tractor trailer trucks are 55 foot,
exactly.
so 2 of them, that's 110 foot if they're backed up right
So,
there.
I think according to looking at the plans that I've looked at, if we had it included from the street to the storage area, which is where you're actually gonna keep your vehicles and everything, yes, that's where you're gonna offload them anyway, you're not gonna offload them down before that. Would probably be sufficient for the concrete.
Yeah.
In the storage area, what are you saying is the building, this proposed office building, or beyond that?
It would be back to the area that they would be storing them in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if they stored them up to here, then that's where it would come to.
Okay, I got you.
But if it's back here,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
And that's what you're gonna do, is you're gonna take it all the way back up to the back of the office with a road going behind it.
Also, we looked at the pole barn, and if you look at the proposed area of the pole barn, from a topo standpoint, it's a rise. It comes up, and you see it from Highway 96. If that goes in, that should have the wall facing Highway 96 should be bricked or meet those commercial design specifications. In the past, we've done it both ways, just the front, meet the specs, or both sides.
Well, I mean, the commercial design standards require 70% brick in all wall area, so that'd be on all four sides. But, you know, it's up to this board to give variances and things of that nature. If you don't want to require it, then it's up to you all.
Well, we've done variances in the past where it wasn't visible from the highway. Am I right?
And if I may, with regards to the pole barn, just to help explain what that would be, is like you would think of parking a tractor in, equipment, gravel floor. It's not going to be, I don't know, are you going to have this road, you have walls on the other side? I think it would be more of an overhang.
It's gonna have a roof and poles.
A roof and
There's
poles.
not gonna be walls for brick.
Right, and so I don't even know if there would be a wall to brick.
I don't think that meets our specification.
And if not, if it's something with visibility, would we be able to plant vegetation to screen it? Is that an option?
I mean, it's gonna be a high barn, I mean, because you've got a privacy fence going down both sides connected to the property, correct?
Excuse me?
You've got a proposed privacy fence going from center of the barn to the property lines on both sides.
Right, to help protect the view and to screen in any parking going behind the barn.
You can ask.
What material is the privacy fence?
It's my understanding that it usually is. You said wood fence.
Be the same type of material, I think that's about over around shoved in over on
Right.
96. Just to visualize.
Shut in.
Same point, right?
Is that required, or is that something that needs to be in writing, or what?
Well, it's not required, but it's on the plan, and if it's
And it
approved.
says wood fence on the plan?
Well, I don't know if it
I
actually,
think I call
It
that
says privacy.
Proposed privacy fence.
Proposed privacy fence. It wasn't a requirement for the city. It's something that our client requested to put on there, something he wants to put on there. This barn would be more used for storage, and then also items can be stored behind it, so that the main lot would be up front. That people would not, the public would not be able to access behind the barn. And that's the main purpose for the fence.
So Don, what would the barn fall under? That's kind of a new one. Would that be a variance?
I would have to do a little research on that to make sure if it's a permissible use. And you can have accessory uses of the property, but I'd have to go back through the design standards and see if it applies to accessory structures as well.
What's the roof going to be? It's like standing seam.
All the way around it, the side door, front, two overhead doors. That architect,
So it will have walls?
oh, yeah.
Okay, then it will have walls.
He's the one who said it'll be a pole
My understanding
barn.
was it
Pole
wasn't.
barn does not have
He said it
walls.
wouldn't have walls.
It will have walls.
We'll have walls, it won't be open.
But according to the plans, it does.
Well, pole barn
The pole
is a
barn?
style of building, but it can still have walls.
Right out of it. They throw it up quick.
I thought they said they weren't gonna have barns, it was gonna be all
Metal
open.
buildings are
He
not
did.
allowed
That's
in the
what-
commercial zone.
He did.
So that, I mean, that's an issue there then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Metal building.
The metal building isn't in a commercial. You can't have a metal building.
No,
It doesn't fit the design standards.
that's what we need to look at. We need, if it's gonna be 70% brick on those walls, is what the specification calls for. I'd like to keep the pole barn bricked, because it's gonna be seen from Highway 96.
Well, like I say, standards don't allow it anyway. A metal building.
Right. metal roof is acceptable, but not metal siding.
Okay.
And then finally, or one of the last things I have is no inoperable equipment for parts are to be on the property. That is considered in our specifications as a salvage yard, which are not permitted under these commercial design specifications or the use in the specifications. So it's equipment that will be bought and sold at retail, but not equipment that is going to be parted out, because that's the salvage yard.
Are y'all in business currently with the lot that's current?
Yes, Mr. Logan is here, Danny Logan. He is
What type of
operating.
business relationship on the current one that's on 96 and this new one?
There is no new one. He is the current owner, and he is going to continue to operate that business there. It's L&L Equipment Sales, and it'll remain L&L Equipment.
This would be a second location?
No, they're upgrading the
Renovation,
existing.
more or
No,
less.
we're
Upgrading
upgrading
the existing.
Right there, it's added to
What
it.
I kept asking, is it the same one or different?
same one.
Okay, so I was trying to get clarification, thank you.
It's gonna break the building and make it look nicer.
I do have one other question. I don't mean to throw another variance or wrench in the equation, but the requirement for underground detention, we will be very close on our hydraulic calculations on whether even detention would be required for this site, being gravel today, gravel tomorrow, and things like that. If we do perform detention on this site, is this the board where we can get a variance to do a pond? There's already a pond constructed, as you heard from the notes. And can we utilize that existing pond if we clean it up for detention if we need to, or is the underground detention it?
City engineer, I believe, did you tell me there is not a pond there?
It's not shown on the contours. There is a pond there. It's just, these are GIS contours. We've since surveyed it, and it's on the property, very close to where it's shaded in on the drawing.
Yeah. Mr. Sutton, the plan, again, as a conceptual plan, indicates the shaded area on the north end of the property is an existing pond. Without going through a full lesson of reading contours, parallel contours means that it's continuous grade, so it's continually going down in a continuous slope. So there is no, in essence, hole, if you will, that would represent a pond by those contours. So my comment was just that the contours that are shown should reflect that there is an actual pond there. I do believe there is a pond there, but what's shown on the topography of the site on this conceptual plan doesn't match the topography that's actually on the ground in the field. But as was indicated by the applicant, they have since run field survey, and that should be incorporated into the final site plan when they submit it.
To answer your question, the variance would come from this board if we just decide to go with the detention pond instead of underground storage. Now,
And that could be submitted at the same time you submit something for the gravel variance on the backside of the lot, if I'm not mistaken. John, is that right?
Be your preliminary, wouldn't it?
On preliminary, yeah.
You can request it at that time. I mean, if you're not going to change the motion now, I mean, you can reflect that in this motion. And when he submits his preliminary plans, it's what you have asked him to do. So he wouldn't have to ask for a variance at that time. I mean, it's up to you all how you.
When are we, I know we see these all the time, I should know this, but when are we going to see or when is it required to see the architectural renderings of this pole barn and this?
At the final.
At the final. Before granting, me personally, before granting any variance on the detention pond, I would like to see what kind of variances fall throughout with these buildings and things like that.
Yeah.
One of the problems with the site is that a lot of work was done to the site without any plans being approved. So there's been grading done to the property that wasn't approved by this board. So when he says there may not be required to have detention because it was already gravelled and is going to be gravelled, well, it wasn't prior to some of the work being done there that wasn't approved by this board. So that's one of the problems that we've had with the site up to this point, is there's been work done out there that wasn't approved, and no permits ever issued for.
That's way out of here. I'm not comfortable moving forward till we get an application for the variances that we've discussed and resubmitted to the board. And at that time, we can make those variances if we see fit.
If I may have a clarification, the variances, would this be a specific variance requested for this, or are these variances that are included on the plans that are submitted as part of the preliminary site plan?
So you've got two variances standing right now. One is for the gravel that we're talking about, and the other one would be, somebody help me out here.
The pole barn.
The pole barn. For the pole barn and retention pond.
Okay.
The retention pond is required to be underground, you're asking for it to be above ground, which that wouldn't be the only one in the city, but those three are going to be looked at. And that's causing enough, to me, it's causing enough variation in the plans, as I'm not looking at enough right now.
So we have a motion on the floor now. We can withdraw that, and we can change it, or we can vote it down.
Who made the motion? I'll make the motion.
No. I made the motion, approval of the conceptual site plan with the engineering reports noted.
We're going to have to remove, are we going to have to remove that one to include, the variances, the variances have to be approved also? We're going to remove the whole thing.
Depends on what, if you're approving the plan as submitted, you're approving the variances that are on there.
You don't want to do it.
And you're gonna have to, you're gonna vote on your amendments. And approve it subject to getting the variances submitted to.
Go ahead, sir.
Or go to vote.
Let me try to kind of steer things clearly. At this point, you are looking at a conceptual plan. As indicated on the conceptual plan, the only thing that describes the structure to the north is that it says proposed location of pole barn. I think that at that point, we don't know if it would meet or not meet the design standards for the commercial site. So I don't think inherently you would be approving a variance of that pole barn by just approving this concept plan. So that, I think, hopefully that should address the pole barn issue. But if you don't feel comfortable with that, you could amend your motion to say that you would approve it as long as the pole barn or that proposed structure meets all your commercial standards. When the final site or the preliminary site plan and the design review plan comes in, then at that point you should have more detailed information across the whole site to be able to assess how many true variances would be required versus how many are actually going to be met. As far as the parking, I wholeheartedly suggest and recommend that the entrances off of 96 and the vehicular parking that's in front of the building certainly be the hard dustless surface that meets your criteria. I think that's, everybody's in agreement on that. And then if it's your desire to allow for the gravel to be placed in the perimeter loop along with the storage areas for the equipment, then again, I think as long as you have incorporated my comments, then at this point we're still setting the stage that you're going to require that those areas be paved. And at this point, that comment I think would apply to the storage areas. But based on discussion tonight, I think you're open, again, upon seeing more detailed plans, to potentially allow for that storage area to be gravel, but not the front parking area. I think that's been discussed pretty clearly. One other thing I might add as far as the detention, the only thing, there's two items that would remotely, I guess, address stormwater and slash detention. Again, the label of the hatched area of the existing pond, and it is just labeled approximate location of existing pond. And then the other area, if you'll notice on the, I guess, eastern boundary of the property, it says area reserved for future stormwater treatment. So again, it's not specifically spelled out on this plan that that will be a surface detention pond. They have just designated a general area for stormwater treatment. So I think by, again, incorporating my note in to make note that stormwater detention is required underground, then you have moved forward tonight with that indication. Again, if when the final or preliminary site plan comes in and it shows surface water or surface detention, along with the remainder of the detailed items in the plan, then at that point you can deliberate the specifics of what's going on the site. And one final thing that I would, again, really just for discussion purposes, in these types of scenarios where you have an ambiguous large area that isn't really the boundaries as outlined right now for the equipment storage area is the outside of the perimeter drive. Everything within that perimeter drive, as indicated here, would be allowed for storage of equipment, including right behind the sidewalk and right adjacent to the building, on each side of the building. So one thing I like to see, again, on preliminary and final site plans is a true delineation of the stored equipment will not go outside of these boundaries. And that allows for effective enforcement of the approved site plan at the time when Don and his office go out to make sure that they're in compliance. If it's clearly indicated on a plan that can be taken out there, and here's where the equipment can be, here's where it can't be, then that's extremely helpful for both the applicant and the city in having clear understanding on the front end. And along with that, I think it's important to note also that vehicular traffic that would generally park in front of the building, if the request is allowed to use gravel for the equipment storage area, then it needs to be understood that people coming to the auction site or to the retail site will not be allowed to drive back in that area and park back in that gravel area, because the whole intent of the hard dustless surface is that the vehicular traffic that is visiting the site on a regular basis stays on a hard dustless surface. So other than equipment storage and delivery of equipment, I think it's important to stipulate that customers or anyone else that's coming to the site in just a S10 or a F-150, or just coming to take a look and see what's out there, would be required to park on the asphalt designated parking spots and not back in the site somewhere. I think that's the intent of providing for asphalt on internal parking and access drives.
I don't think they would have, for what you're planning on doing, you plan on having auctions out there also, aren't you?
Yeah. Yes.
How many cars you anticipate coming there?
How many vehicles would you have during an auction?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, so there's no way that what we're looking at here is gonna accommodate that, so we're gonna have to do something.
The way it's set up, people drive, they drive their
I understand, I go to them all the time.
And all of that needs to be under consideration when you determine the allowance or disallowance of this gravel storage area.
But that only happens how often? How often you have an auction?
We have on site 4 to 5 a year. The rest of the time it's just,
Individual sales.
yeah. Then you have 6 on site, nobody comes, they just get online. Parking area is not promotional stand. 90% of people come in, maybe with their pickup and their trailer. Promotional stands.
purpose.
Businesses already exist, it's just trying to make it a little bit nicer. So that's good for me.
Okay, sounds like, I'd like to call a vote on the original motion as it stands with incorporating the engineer's notes into the motion. And that will get us from where we are now to a plan that will get us more information and answer some of the questions that we have for variances and what we need to do to get started. Is that what everybody is grasping? Okay, so I got a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8.5 is discuss interaction on recommendations from the workshop. Howdy. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Vice Chairman Benson.
This evening, the Planning Commission met to discuss the City of Fairview land use map, particularly those areas zoned industrial. And in the conversation, it became clear that there is industry out there looking for areas in Williamson County and particularly Fairview. Although there are some areas that we do have zoned industrial, there's a need for more area. So based on the discussions we had this evening, I will make a proposal that all property northeast of I-40, approximately 100 plus acres,
1,000.
1,000.
be rezoned industrial.
Clarification for the proposed land use, it be allowed for that to be in potential zoning request. It will not be an active zoning change. Did I clarify that?
Yeah, it'd just be a recommendation to change the proposed land use map to allow for that to be a proposed land use.
A proposed, just for clarification for any public that may be of interest, but a proposed land use is the proposed ability for land to be rezoned. If it's currently a residential, currently a farm, agricultural, it stays that until the application is submitted and approved for it to be, excuse me, rezoned. What we're discussing here is identifying an area that would be a beneficial area of Fairview to focus on for the potential of future rezoning for it to be an industrial zoning area. And our main goal in that, I'll add this, is focusing on opportunities that would bring jobs to our area. And knowing that we have unused land in that area, that would be a good fit for what the requests are, being close to the interstate and easy access. I second your motion.
Is there any further discussion on the workshop? We do have a motion on the floor.
Now, we're planning on industrial general, correct?
Yes,
Yes, okay, not just industrial, it's industrial general.
industrial
That
general.
clarification. Don, did we state the motion to where it puts operation on your department to bring us something
move
back
forward.
for a review for? Or is this the motion that moves it into it and there's not a line drawn?
Well, the motion would be to change the map, so I
Okay,
would go in and change the map to reflect that.
so it would be moving forward. It's not for you to prepare something for us to come back and look at.
No.
Excellent.
It
Okay,
would
just wanted to
be-
clarify that.
I mean, I can make the change and then print you out a new map, so
Thank
your
you.
map is a current map. So when you look at potential rezoning applications that come before you, you look at it and say, well, it don't meet the land use plan. Do we want to approve it, or do we want to make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners for approval or not? But your decision should be based on what the proposed map says.
Okay, with the current proposal as is, how do we say I was to explain to someone that area, how would I know the boundaries? Is there certain lot boundaries, map and parcel areas, or is it the
Well,
proposal
that
plan you have?
area would be from 96 Interstate 40, northeast corner from county line to county line.
Okay,
So you got Dixon County.
that creates our
and-
square is
and
what?
Cheatham County,
Okay.
and then the other boundary would be the interstate.
Okay, I wasn't in the magic finger, so I was curious, did we create that square? And the answer is yes. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 8.6 is the 14-inch, or the Phase 2 of the Walmart spoil site. Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Got some discussion, and we have a recommendation from the tree board, and also in terms in the engineers' notes, there are no engineering comments. Ms. Spence?
From the Tree Commission. The Tree Commission is recommending the approval of Phase 2 grading and tree removal and protection plan with the assurance of the as-built survey at the close of the project, and that the future development of this property be required to meet the City of Fairview Tree Density Workshop requirements to replace trees removed in the grading and drainage work in accordance with the Fairview Tree Preservation and Removal Ordinance, and as indicated in the as-built survey, to be provided by the DeWall and Associates Consulting Engineers, and to the Fairview Tree Commission once the grading and drainage work is complete.
Hey, do we have a representative of the property owner here?
I'm John DeWall with DeWall and Associates, representing the property owner.
You are representing the property owner?
Yes.
Okay. In Phase 1, we had one of the criteria for moving forward in the 3.5 acres, and I believe on the TDEC permits it says 4.5 acres, is the permits that were supplied by TDEC. Do we have permits for this yet?
Permits have been submitted, and actually the entire property is permitted because when we submitted to TDEC for what they called out as 4.25 acres and received permit number TNR 148545, that covers the entire property at 2396 Fairview Boulevard. So what we are submitting to TDEC with this revised plan is additional areas of disturbance on that same property, but the property itself is already covered under TDEC's permit that I hold in my hand right here. The application for those additional areas have been submitted, and we're awaiting, acknowledgement of that receipt and the expansion of the proposed areas on the property. So that simply has not been.
So the address supersedes the amount of property that is put out in the permit.
That is my opinion in terms
that
of
true,
what
Will?
is approved by the state is approved for the property.
Chairman, my general experience with construction stormwater permits as issued by the state is similar in nature to as being described by the representative of the owner. Typically, you would request a permit for a particular site. If anything on that site changed with regards to the grading or drainage, you would submit a revised stormwater pollution prevention plan, which is mostly what you're seeing tonight. There's some additional documentation that would be submitted to the state but isn't required to be submitted to us. And then once that is submitted to the state, sometimes they will acknowledge that they've received it, but oftentimes they won't even acknowledge that they've received it. They just require that revised plan be placed on the site and kept on the site for the duration of the property. So when they do have an inspector come out, if they do, then he can make sure that the property is being protected as required by state construction stormwater permit standards, and therefore what's on the ground actually matches what's on a plan that's been submitted to the state. So, and a long answer, yes, that's typically been my experience as to how the state operates under construction stormwater permits.
Okay.
Given the concern of the individual who spoke earlier this evening as a citizen, I wonder, how certain are we, Mr. Lavorne, city engineer, that whatever risk we are taking, if we do approve without the TDEC permits, I guess better stated, what risk are we taking that there would be runoff that could damage delicate ecosystems in the park?
Would you like me to address that? Or?
I'd like to hear from Mr. Lavorne first, if you don't mind.
We have to rely on the review of our city engineer and looking at what is proposed for those erosion control measures and stormwater runoff plan. We have to rely on him to review those plans and make sure that they are implementing adequate stormwater runoff erosion control measures to keep sediments and stuff from being washed into the park and into the streams. If Will reviews the plans and says that they've got adequate control measures, then we have to rest on his professional opinion that's been taken care of.
So, Will, you're telling us that you are very personally, maybe this is such a challenging issue because it's obviously important to such a variety of citizens that have very different views on what could be critical to quality of life in the city. Are you telling us that you believe the stormwater standards as they stand right now pose no risk to the ecosystems of the park? If we clear cut, what did I read, 1,800 trees?
I cannot guarantee that they pose no risk to the ecosystems. I can not guarantee. I have reviewed the plan and I do concur that it meets the state's construction stormwater permit requirements for protecting adjacent properties from receiving sediment runoff from a construction site. In this case, the only construction that would be taking place is the placement of fill material, soil, from an off-site location just adjacent to it. So from that standpoint, as presented on the plan, the protections that are presented on the plan are in full compliance with the state permit requirements, again, to protect adjacent properties from sediment runoff. That's not to say that they won't fail, or they couldn't fail, or that some issues could arise, or that those standards may prove not to be sufficient. Having said that, state permit requirements call for the owner or the operator, in this case it would be probably the operator who's actually conducting the work, for a TDEC trained individual to perform twice a week inspections of those protection measures to make sure, A, that they're installed, B, they're installed appropriately, and C, that they are sufficient for what's happening actually at the site. Because those standards, the state produces a erosion prevention sediment control standards that provide details for a bunch of different protection measures. Standardized details that are used across the state. And those standards generally have design guidelines for this is a good applicable area to apply this protection measure. But all sites have unique characteristics, and the state recognizes that, and therefore the twice-a-week inspections call for not only for that individual to make sure that those protection measures are installed, but that they are actually working as they should be according to those across the state standards. So if there is an issue and your Don's staff requires that those twice-weekly inspections be submitted to his office too for review. So, and again, that, and some, there may be some question, well, that's fox and hen house situation. And yes, there is some of that. But that trained individual signs those inspection forms, and those inspection forms go to Nashville, to the state, as being a part of that permit. So if that individual or that operator is signing those forms and they're proved to be false, then he's got a lot more issues on his hands than any leverage that the city could wage. So, and that would be at the state level.
And how long would those twice-weekly inspections go on?
That's a good question. The requirement for those inspections is to continue until the site receives final stabilization. The state defines final stabilization as an establishment of healthy, natural vegetative growth that at least covers, I think, and Mr. DeWall can correct me on this, 75% of the disturbed area. Is that?
It's actually 70%.
70% of the disturbed area.
But it's over 90% of the entire property.
Correct. So that, what that means is you could, if you had 10 acres of disturbance, you couldn't have 3 acres, 30% just bare. You have to have the 90% of the site has to be 70% covered, if that makes sense. So you can't just leave an open area bare and uncovered and unprotected. That vegetative cover, 70% vegetative cover, has to be uniform across in essence, the entirety of the site. And those inspections continue until that determination has been made. And at that point, the applicant or the permittee would actually apply for what's called a notice of termination. Thank you, Mr. Law. To the state, and the state would then either concur that yes, the site's finally stabilized, or no, it's not. You still need to be protecting the adjacent properties.
Thank you. And when we begin to replace trees as a city, would someone please just explain to me how the tree replacement process works?
Well, once a developer comes in here to develop that site, and one of the reasons why they're required to do the tree inventory list is so we know what's there. And when a developer comes in to develop a property, he's going to show us where his building is going to be, where his parking area is going to be. And in the area where the building is going to be and the parking area is going to be, those trees that are in those areas are exempt from the inventory altogether. So we can establish, okay, these are going to be exempt from that inventory list. These are the required, that's going to be on the inventory list. And he has to fill out a tree density worksheet that's going to establish the tree density units that are required for the site. And when they bring in their final plat, they'll have to bring in a landscape plan and a tree replacement schedule that shows where they're going to put those trees on the site that they're replacing. The design standards, the commercial design standards holds some developments, depending on the size of the tree that they're taking out, could be held that those trees are replaced at a 50% rate, a ratio. Some of it's 25%. So they'll do the tree density worksheet. They will look at the design review manual and establish how many trees they're going to have to replace on site. If they can't replace everything on site, then they have to put the remainder of those trees, the cost of those trees, in a tree bank that then the city can go out and put trees on city-owned property where they choose to put trees at.
And all of the activities that you've just described are fully funded through the process The city is not responsible for funding any of the replacement of trees,
No,
obviously.
ma'am. No, ma'am. It's all burdened by the developer.
And the funds are safely set aside and don't disappear into,
No, actually, they do disappear into the general fund.
okay, that is a problem for me.
Now, that's the way
If we're
the
gonna-
city is done.
Is
We
there-
don't have any jurisdiction over that.
If we're going to face an increasing, this particular issue for tonight, how many trees do we estimate will be cut?
I think there's about 1,300 that's going to be cut, around 1,300.
1,357. There will be 410 saved. So we're cutting around 80, it goes around 82% of the trees on the property, saving around 20% around the edges, and particularly along the stream buffer, and also along a wet weather conveyance area that we've left natural to better protect the stream that runs through the property.
The tree bank, the way the city handles the tree bank is it's part of the general fund. And that this board does not have any jurisdiction of any monies that come and go because of the things that we do here. It's up to the budget of the city commissioners when projects come up, that they have that money at their disposal, that they can use it for trees. But I don't believe there's any line item budget for tree bank in the city budget.
Well, we haven't had any developments that were required to pay into the tree bank as yet. Once the plan comes to the planning commission and they tell us they can't get all the trees on site that's required and they have to pay into the tree bank, then that money will be earmarked as trees or a payment toward the tree bank. The tree commission is the board that will have the authority to tell where that money is spent, or where the trees go, or where they want those trees to be located at.
But we've never had that.
But we've never had that experience yet.
We've never had the funds to enact that.
No.
This is
So
our
it is
first
in place.
experience? Okay.
The mechanism is in place to track it.
Yes.
Okay. I apologize, I was wrong.
Okay, well,
But
thank you.
to answer your question, we don't know if it's going to fall into that yet or not. Just
Right.
because they're removing
understand that.
1,300 trees
Thank you.
doesn't mean that they've got to replace 1,300 trees.
Well, you took out the park in the building.
Yeah.
That's removed from that equation of 1,300 trees.
Yes.
He's leaving 400 anyway, so it's probably gonna be pretty close. I do have one more question that was posed by, I'm sorry,
No, I'm finished.
that was asked from the gentleman that was here earlier.
Yes, sir.
Exactly what material are gonna be spread up there on that spoil here?
Only natural materials from the Walmart site in terms of soil, potentially if they run into rock deep enough and have to blast some rock, there could be some shot rock. Those are the only materials to be disposed there. We also have a note where no other activities will occur on this property. There will not be a fueling station or a place to work on equipment or a storage yard. All of those facilities that have a higher potential to create pollution are all located on the Walmart site, where they are protected under the Walmart standards for stormwater management that are the highest standards in the United States. Walmart had a settlement with EPA, and the result of that settlement is that Walmart sites are doing the greatest, highest level of stormwater protection of any sites in America by judge's order, and Walmart's agreement with that. They have a trailer full of notebooks and a wall full of plans that just amazed me. I'm the stormwater director for Wilson County, and that's why I know the regulations, because I have to regulate all of Wilson County for stormwater. And I have to review plans like this, every planning commission meeting, and have to know the regulations, what the minimums are that are required, and what Walmart requires is way above the minimums.
So basically what you're telling me is the only fill material that will be used on this site is the natural fill material that is found at that location?
Yes. If you would, I don't know if you want to know, but I can tell you there are 4 or 5 ways that we have exceeded the state minimum requirements deliberately on this site to protect the park, because we recognize that valuable resource downstream. We have added a sediment trap that's not required under TDEC regulations, just upstream of the jurisdictional waters of the state. We have required wire-backed silt fence when standard silt fence would meet minimum state standards. We have diverted or bypassed flow from the surrounding properties to the south, east, and west through undisturbed areas, rather than allowing that bypass flow to cross the site where it could cause increased erosion and sedimentation. We also are having a wider buffer than the minimum state buffer along the stream, because the contractor, where he installs the silt fence, wire-back silt fence to protect the stream, will not be cutting trees in that area, so there will actually be a little wider buffer than the state minimum. So we've actually gone above and beyond the minimum standards to be certain as we can be as a designer, that this plan will protect those waters of the state and the park.
Does this, just out of curiosity, does this include the stream that runs down Bowie Road? Because I know when y'all were draining the lake, that there was some sediment disturbance in that stream right there. But y'all
This site
collected
does not drain down that direction. This goes a little different direction.
Okay.
Mr. Wall?
Yes, sir.
One question. On drawing C1, the lower right corner, there is a note that says coordinate with property owner for exact limits of work around existing structure. And it's got an arrow pointing up to two sides of a structure. I'd like to see 5 other words added after that.
Okay.
Without disturbance to adjacent property. I'd hate to see you and the owner do something that would create a greater runoff to the property to the south.
We would have no problem adding those 5.
Or something to that effect.
Actually, the limits of disturbance shown to be marked with orange construction fence kind of delineate a border around the area that can be disturbed. And so they cannot go outside of that limit of that orange fence that's shown. So I don't necessarily think those 5 words are needed because of that marking that's denoted on the plans. There's a chance that there might be a larger area protected, but it would not be a smaller area.
But doesn't that fence cut off there at elevation 845?
No, it follows that area around 845, so that would limit the disturbance to only areas inside.
So the orange area goes out to Highway 100?
No, it comes along the 845, so the areas along 100 would not be disturbed in front of that home.
Okay, how about the side of the home over on the Thompson property?
If you kind of follow that dashed limit of disturbance line, it goes along the property line, so nothing can disturb over on the Thompson or out on the highway.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that...
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? So we have a motion on the floor to approve and
I actually
I'm sorry,
have some, that it'll be real quick. It's just, what Will was saying is that the TDEC, they'll have, I guess, the sweep inspections. You said twice a week. Is it in addition to 24 or 48 hours after a rain event? Or did they just do away with that, just say twice a week, regardless if it rains or not?
I believe the current standard is that the twice weekly inspections are required. They must be, I believe, 72 hours apart. At least 72 hours apart. So you can't do one like Monday afternoon and then do another one Tuesday morning. They have to be 72 hours apart. And then if one of those twice weekly inspections falls within, I believe, is it 24 hours of a storm event?
I think that's correct.
If one of those inspections falls within 24 hours of after a storm event, then that suffices the inspection requirements.
Okay.
If it does not, they are required to go and inspect within 24 hours of a certain rainfall event. I believe it's 1 inch or greater.
Okay.
To make sure after that event that those measures are still in place, or if they need to be repaired, or if they need to be replaced altogether, that would be required.
Okay. Thank you.
Nothing further. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'd like to note that Mayor Toddy was unable to vote on that vote. She had to leave early.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job on this explanation.
Great questions you guys had. Kept me on my toes the whole time.
Item 9.1 is Planning, Zoning, Codes Department reports and discussion. Reports for discussion and information, excuse me. Seeing none.
I won't skip him now.
Shall we skip him?
Yeah, come back to them.
Okay, we're going to come back to Mr. Lavorne. City engineer?
Yes. One thing that I want to commend you on is the proactive approach you've taken to this industrial land use, future land use option. Too many times I see communities that are reacting to a rezoning request, particularly for commercial and or industrial, as opposed to being proactive and establishing an area within your corporate limits that could potentially, or has the potential, to have sufficient infrastructure to support an industrial type application. So I applaud you for taking that proactive stance and looking at areas of your city to see where you would like for patterned and designed and thoughtful growth to take place, because that doesn't always take place. So continue down that path, continue looking at your future land uses, and see how you want your town, how your city to develop. One other thing that I think was an important clarification tonight was that proposed change to the map was a proposed change to the future land use plan. It does not change the zoning of that property. It just says that whole map says that these are general areas where we think certain particular uses would be good or allowed or potentially allowed, and here's areas where we think really the only should take place is residential or agriculture or whatever the case might be. The reason that's important, A, is because it's factual as to what that map does, but B, the state legislature recently passed a moratorium on annexations, not necessarily rezonings, but annexations. And so cities are now not allowed to annex property for at least 1 year. I believe it's June of 2014, I think, is what it was. Initially, it was scheduled for 2 years, but then they revoked it back. April. That's right, April, because in January, the committee that's reviewing it is supposed to get back to the state legislature.
That's just for forced annexation.
That's correct. That's just for annexations that the action is started by the Planning Commission and or the council. For annexations that are requested by a property owner, those can continue on through the process. They don't automatically get approved. They still have to go through the process of being annexed. So just something to keep you up to date on what our legislature's doing.
Going to go back to Planning, Zoning, Codes Department. Mr. Lavorne, anything?
In the packet, the second packet that went out to you, I put in there a spreadsheet that had development fees for Franklin, Spring Hill, and Brentwood. I wasn't able to get everything from Thompson Station that I needed to make all the calculations to show you a comparison of the city of Fairview fees versus other cities in Williamson County. And as you can see, our fees, if you apply 6 projects that we have in the city to the other 3 cities that I've gave you their fee structure for, you can see the city comes in at the bottom. If you add up all 6 of those projects, we come in at the bottom of the list in fees. And out of those, you can look through there and see which one of those cities or which of those cities builds roads. And those are the ones bringing in the most money. So Franklin, we know, builds roads. Brentwood builds a few. We can see that Spring Hill doesn't build roads. That's the comparison of the cities in Williamson County. We'll have it on the agenda for next month for y'all to discuss fee structures and to make a recommendation to the board, either leave them the same or to change our fee structures. The way that we calculate residential properties right now is that we calculate the building permit based on a $68 square foot per dwelling. Franklin, I believe theirs was based on $90 a square foot, or Brentwood one, I can't remember which one it was. Not saying that necessarily needs to change, but what we probably need to look at most is requiring a road impact fee that would go toward building new roads and maintenance on existing roads. Then, we could be able to develop the roads in town center and recoup some of the costs that's associated with the new road and maintain roads that developments use on a daily basis. So I will have that on y'all's agenda for next month to make a recommendation or not.
I didn't get that second packet, so can you?
You didn't get the second packet?
No, there's actually a couple of us that didn't get it, so if we could have that resent before the next meeting, that would be fantastic.
Well, we made them. Good.
Well, we can make sure there's some available.
Thank you.
That it?
Yeah.
City attorney.
Yeah, who all didn't get one?
Who all did get the second packet?
Let's get a show of hands on who did not get
You didn't get one?
the road impact fee schedule.
It might have, John might have left it somewhere, I just didn't get it, but.
Okay.
Need to
I get, I always get
Fairview
it.
correctly. Need to spell Fairview correctly.
It was the second packet. It was second.
Farview.
Right?
Yeah. Walmart site plan and then this package. That's
Okay.
the only two I got.
All right.
My eyes are running together with all them figures.
The city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Initially, I was sitting here thinking that I don't really have anything to say, and then a couple of things that Don said and a couple of things that Will said kind of primed some interest in me, and wanted to go just a little down a different route with this thing and just explain a couple of things on this. The land use map is solely, I'm sure most of you know this, and I know some of you do, is solely the purview of this board. You pass the land use map. Previous boards have always provided copies to the Board of Commissioners, but it doesn't require approval by the Board of Commissioners. It is it's your pet, and it's very important. In what I'm about to say, I don't mean to say this in derogation of that land use map, because it is a plan. It is a plan of how the city wants to develop, but it is a liquid document. I've always told boards, don't fall in love with the land use map, because it's a very important document, but over a period of time, it may not, but over a period of time, if the city's demographics change, if you see, we really initially had this as one classification, but that's not really what we need anymore. Don't be afraid to change it if it needs changing, but the best thing to do is change it, and then change what you're going to use on there, and then the Board of Commissioners will enact the zoning. I get really scared when people start saying, well, let's go here and zone this, because it's not as easy once you put that zoning on there to go back and change the zoning as it is to change what your suggested use of that land is. The reason being this: if you've got a project out here that comes into an area that it fits, then you can go do the zoning and you have some control of it. If you already have it zoned and they come in and it fits that, and they meet all the specifications that the city has, the design criteria, everything that they have, it becomes a ministerial function. You don't have any choice but to approve that. The city don't have to zone property, but if it is zoned and I meet those qualifications, then you've got to issue me a permit. But just keep tabs on it, and if you see the changes, some of them are real subtle, some of them are real drastic. If you get something the size of a Walmart comes in here that wants to be in this and it fits, you're going to notice that in a hurry. The second thing I wanted to talk about was what the legislature did with annexations. And they initially started out they were going to go to, I think it was September of 2015, and now they dropped back to 2014. That's a moving target. They may move it back, they may move it up. But just for your education on that point, the mere fact that somebody wants their property annexed doesn't mean that it's going to fly through and be real simple, because it sometimes can get pretty complicated. Sometimes it does not, but right now, any annexation that the city was going to do of its own volition for the good of the city is on hold. The last thing that I want to mention to you, since you're going to be getting the thing on impact fees, I'm not saying impact fees are good or they're bad. I'm just talking about what the state statute requires on some impact fees. There's a general statute now on impact fees that authorizes cities to enact impact fees. Previous to that statute, most impact fees were done by private act of the legislature, and they ran a hodgepodge. They ran all over the place. Some of you may not know this. I was doing some research on impact fees the other day, and the first private act of the legislature for Fairview to enact an impact fee was done in 1987. So they go right back. But now you've got a general statute that everybody can see. The thing with an impact fee for roads, the law requires when you're making your recommendation, and Will's probably more, as I know, is more familiar with the formula for this than I am, but I know that when you're making your recommendation, any city that has enacted an impact fee that I can find, the city has to commission a study of that impact fee to get the data to go in there. What they're looking for is the maximum impact fee they can charge. Now that don't mean that the city has to enact that impact fee. If the maximum you can charge is $5 per whatever unit, the Board of Commissioners may only want to enact $1. That's up to them. But I know it's a specialized field to do those impact studies. I know Franklin and Nolensville use the same entity to do theirs. And they come up with a maximum, and then the board enacts the impact fee. It does go a little bit further. Impact fees that are done for roads, those funds come in and they have to go into a special account. The cost of your impact fees has to have a nexus between what your fee is and what the cost is to build the road in the area where you are residing. Excuse me. One of those things is if you don't and you get that fee challenged, then you're going to be refunding some money. The other big point of the impact fees are that once they're collecting, this is just for roads, that once that doesn't apply to like facilities fees, because it's pretty broad on facilities. The city can use facilities money to do facilities in any area across the city. Impact fees on roads have to go in a special account, and they have to be spent in a manner that will affect the area from which they're collected. Give a good example. I'm simple-minded and I like examples. But for example, if there was an impact fee for roads at Walmart, and there was not, but if they put in X number of dollars, then if the city wanted to spend those, they'd have to spend them in some manner that would have some impact on Walmart's business, because that's where it came from. And it's pretty broad about how you do that. If you wanted to widen Highway 100, I think it'd be pretty easy to say, okay, if you can get people more easily down there, or putting a road coming into Highway 100 near Walmart, you could say, well, you know, if I can move more people more easily down the road, then it's going to benefit them because they're coming out right next door to it. It's just an example to show you how this would be, and I think whether they enact impact fees or not is not my real concern. It's not my business, but the basis of how you get it is going to be the same for all cities. And once you get that, you normally have to consider, that'd be the Board of Commissioners considering that, but you have to go back and revisit this thing. You can't just come up with a fee that's going to hit now and it's going to be the same 20 years from now. Most people put something there like every 3, 5 something years we're going to, generally they go back to the same people who did the study because they've got the basis of it and say, you need to update my study. The cost of building the roads may have gone up. It may have gone down. If it is, I'd sure like to see that because I don't know of anything that's gone down. But just thought I'd throw those things out for you to consider as you look into this. And I'll hush because I originally didn't have anything to say.
No comment.
I kind of like that.
What?
Yeah.
We're done.
So we have
back to
communication
Lavender
from the planning commission members. Commissioner Elliott.
I was going to talk just a minute about quality of life, but since it's 8:45, I think I'll make that very short because our sleep would enhance that. I would like to ask if it is possible to add to next month's agenda a discussion and maybe a short report from our city engineer about what stormwater quality regulations exist now in our subdivision regulations.
That's easily done.
All right. And I wonder also if it would be possible to get the engineering report by email a few days or a week in advance of the meeting. I know sometimes I'm scrambling at the last minute to comprehend them, and I don't have an opportunity to ask questions. And as a new Planning Commission member, that would be most helpful.
Yes, I agree completely. The issue is, I wait to issue my engineering comments until I get the revised plans back submitted. So,
understand.
Don, those are required to be resubmitted by when?
The submittals for next month hasn't been in my office by Friday. We have a staff review meeting next Wednesday. And if there's any revisions that they have to make, they have to come back the following Thursday. And then the packets go out to you all on Friday.
So I get those revised plans typically when he emails them to me in the packet on that Friday, so I get them maybe Monday or Tuesday.
About the same time we do.
About the same time you do, and then I'm issuing my comments. But we can try to at least get them to you maybe a day before, or that Monday, maybe Friday before the meeting that's on Tuesday, through an email type setting, if that's something that would be beneficial.
That would be helpful.
Okay. We'll shoot to try to accomplish that. Do you have everybody's email addresses? Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, one more thing. If that is something desired by the Planning Commission, I think we could structure it such that it would qualify for a portion of your training. If you want to conduct a general stormwater discussion part of that discussion would include your stormwater quality requirements in your existing subregs. We may not be able to do it next month. Maybe if we could give me maybe till the July meeting to formulate a PowerPoint and actually you can incorporate that as part of your required training if you wanted to go that route. But we could certainly look at doing something like that.
Commissioner Sutton?
I have nothing tonight. Larry's already said everything I was thinking.
Commissioner Beata?
I had something that kind of was clicking around. So, you know, we were talking about roads and the cities, you know, kind of maybe getting their head wrapped around moving forward with some road building. What would the state moratorium on annexation, how would that, or how could that potentially impact road building, say eminent domain or something like that?
Annexation has absolutely nothing to do with eminent domain.
Okay.
Annexation is annexing a piece of property or properties into the corporate boundaries of the city.
Mm-hmm.
Eminent domain is taking of property, physically taking it from citizens or from private holdings and converting it to public use.
What if that land is in the county that the road needs to go through?
Well, if it's in the county, you can't normally.
So
have
you
some
would
problems.
need to annex it first before you could.
Yeah, well, either that or
Take it.
get some sort of an agreement with the county.
Okay.
You know, the reason being, it gets real tricky if you're doing that, because if it gets challenged at all, the first question is, why are you spending city money outside city boundaries?
Mm-hmm.
So you get into some real problems with it. But yes, you would need, if you're going to do that. But what you do, you normally can't annex a road per se without annexing just the roadway. You've got to annex some property or some citizens, something. Mm-hmm. But if you were like if you had two roads you were tying together and you had to go across something, that has been done.
Okay.
You annex the area. Let's say you were in the city here and you were in the city here. You need to tie this together. That has been done successfully. But generally, annexations and eminent domain are two separate individuals.
Okay.
Although some people think that when you annex something, you're going to take their
You're
property.
taking it.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it would be, in the case he's talking about with the county property, it would be a joint condemnation of property for the eminent domain between the county and the city.
Generally, those are done as joint projects. They decide what they're going to do. Like, you may pay the design, and the county does the work because it's on their property, and they pay for that. And then the next time you do an annexation, you get that strip and get some property, and you're in
But
good
they have
shape.
to approve it.
Yeah.
And one other thing, just again being proactive and with the industrial general over on 96 and 40. John, you had mentioned in the workshop that you had some design guidelines for that area. Are those ready to be put in front of us? Or, you know, obviously we don't need to rush and get it on next month, but just kind of keep that ball rolling.
Once they're made public, any potential in being able to maybe acquire the properties to do the development ourselves might be out the window.
Okay.
Because it's not public knowledge right now.
Okay. That's good for me. All right, nothing further.
Commissioner Benson?
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Did we lose one? No. Commissioner Behan?
I have nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Mitchell? Commissioner Anderson? Are you sure? Okay. Well, I just have a few, you need a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Second. We're adjourned. Them babysitters carry some fireable weight, bud.